All right, we are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. With me here on the plus set is Dr. Friday. We're talking, I'm looking at the monitor. Ask the tax expert. You see the number there? 737-7587. If you want to jump in and ask a question about it, I think many people have already probably gone through the process and gotten their returns back if they have one, right?
Well, but you may get a surprise form, or you may say, hey, did I take this?
Don't say that. Are you trying to scare us?
I'm just saying, if it happens, don't freak out. Just, you know, take a look at it. It may have a zero effect on your taxes, but it may affect the accountability on your insurance. Just keep in mind that even though it may have a zero effect on your taxes, you may have to pay back some of the money the government gave you. That's our biggest thing on that.
All right. Now, not to get political, but as we went to the break, I was just saying, you know, some of the candidates in this election year are talking about changing this tax structure, or doing away with the IRS and going with something else like a flat sales tax, whatever, okay? And that's open to debate, and we're not here to take sides on that, but can you see the IRS radically changing, as big as it is and with everything it affects?
Right. Well, keep in mind there's two things about the IRS. Okay. IRS is the police of the government in a sense for collections, right? I mean, they don't make the rules. They don't do anything but implement.
That's Congress.
So they basically are only there to basically collect the information and collect the money. So, I mean, the IRS in itself, yes, is way too big. I mean, considering there's, what, billions of people on this planet or in the United States that are filing, there's no way that is ever going to change until we can get into a system that basically requires less accountability to individuals and maybe more accountability to businesses. There's a lot less businesses in this world than there are individuals, so they would be able to then to break the power, I guess you would say. It's a powerful horse. It's like the police force or anything else. They have a lot of power to keep chaos from happening, in my opinion. You
know, you mentioned something interesting. If it was to change right now, the deductions, the giving, charitable giving, if they went to some other, that you know, you told me something during the break that I thought was interesting. You think most people that give to charitable causes aren't doing so because I want to do this because of the exemption. It's nice you get that.
Exactly.
You know, or the deduction, whatever it is. But they're giving because it's a cause they believe in, correct?
Well, that's it. Anything you do on your taxes, keep in mind you're only getting a percentage. So you buy a house, you don't buy a house because you might save a few dollars on taxes. Right. You give to charities not because you're going to save money by giving to the charity. There is a nice reward possibly, but when if I give $1,000 and I'm at the 20% tax bracket, I'm going to save $200. So theoretically, I could have given $800 and not done anything, right? So I don't believe buying a house. You don't buy a house for tax savings. If you do, you're crazy. Yeah. You know, you don't give to charity. You don't do anything. You don't get into debt for any reason to save taxes. That's just ridiculous, because the most you're ever going to save in the very highest tax bracket is 35% of what you give. Most people are in the 10 to 15%. So I'm just saying, be smart. If anyone tells you, oh, go out and, you know, get a bigger home or whatever, get a bigger, I mean, I can't imagine anyone saying these things. Don't do it. Don't ever go into debt to save taxes. And that's where the tax code, in my opinion, when they say, let's get rid of all these special interest in the tax code. It's, you know, that's what does need to happen. I don't believe it's going to have a huge effect on the everyday person. I know, I don't care which side of the election or people you're on, they love to threaten people. Oh, we're going to give you this, and we're going to take, we need to give a little less to the people and let them stand on their own, but we need to take a little bit from the people giving over here. Nice little balance. It shouldn't cost anything for people to do. I mean, in all honesty, a few dollars one way or the other. Yeah,
that's why the complexity of changing anything radically.
But it's the special interest that's coming into stopping most of this. But anytime you hear about it, it's always that we're going to take the child credit away. I'm sorry. At no point should we be paying people to have children. And I don't care, again, but take some of these credits away. But when you do it, it should reduce the overall cost of taxes.
It's funny when you say child credit, because no one's thinking, I'm going to have a kid so I can get the child credit.
But people are excited when they have a kid and then they're getting $1,000 for them.
Have you checked how much it costs to raise a child?
I totally agree. That's what I always tell people. I said, I don't care, but you're right. That is the hilarious part of it. But there are, you know, but the code basically says, oh, it's great to have this and not so great over here or whatever. Let's just make it a much more straightforward. It gets complicated. I get complicated. I mean, I get confused sometimes when I start reading some of the code, because it can get, if you're in this circumstance, this is how it's happening. If you're in this circumstance, you know what I'm saying? It's not black and white.
I got you. I got you. You know, we have people come on the show talk on Social Security.
Oh, sure.
And so we have many viewers that call that are dealing with that. And I'm wondering, from their perspective, sometimes they call, and we need a tax expert to answer some of it. They wonder, is SSI, the Social Security insurance, or assess Social Security disability. Is that taxable? All taxable?
It can be.
Okay,
if
it depends on what else other income.
There's one of those exceptions. Yeah. So if you're only on Social Security, you're not filing taxes. If you're making $5,000 on a pension and you only have Social Security, you're not paying taxes.
Will you still get a form in the mail if you get that?
Absolutely.
So even if you're not paying any taxes, is it still, in your opinion, worth just filing?
There has been a couple years where we had like property taxes on the 1040. We were getting a deduction a couple years ago, like in 08 or whatever, and so it was worthwhile because a lot of these people still owned homes.
Okay, that's
so
what I was wondering if maybe
they got a $250 credit, refundable credit in those years, and a lot of people left that money on the table because they hadn't been filing for years. Right now, there is nothing on the table that would require you to file just to file.
But you could still go ahead and do it just.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not going to hurt you to file. It's not going to. But if you don't.
Some people, it's a habit. I was raised the last 60 years I filed taxes.
What about when you have families with kids that are going off to college and maybe they're applying for financial aid and they've been claiming the child, but then the child gets a job and starts working, is going to be off on their own, and then you decide they're going to apply for financial aid based on their earnings. I'm not going to claim them anymore and let them. I guess you have to decide how much they may get from financial aid by being self-sufficient as opposed to me claiming them.
They're more apt to get more. If they're self-sufficient than the parents, at least with most of my clients, because the parents are making more than $75,000, which sounds like a lot of money for a couple or whatever. But the bottom line is, anyone making more than $75,000 sometimes, and we will do a lot of tax planning. You should talk to your tax person a year before the child gets ready to go on FAFSA, which is like the year after their senior year or whatever, junior, senior year, because there may be plans, especially in the higher tax brackets, if you don't have the money and to let the kids go on their own, have their little job and to fly, because otherwise they may not qualify at all for very little money because of your income.
All right, okay, so that they would get no financial aid if they stayed on the parents. So
very likely that can happen, yeah.
But then what you have to do is give up your exemption.
But it's not just your exemption, because there's some questions on there that basically could say, do you live with your parents? Do you have the ability, does the parents give you any support? So it's not just the exemption, it's there has to be some proof that they...
Curious, how do they check and see if they're living with their parents?
I would say there's no way, especially when children are living at the college, there's probably not a lot of ways of telling that. You can lie, Nick. It's possible. I'm not saying... That's out there.
I wonder, does anyone ever do that?
I'm pretty sure yes is the answer on that question.
All right. We've got another question from Ricky. Ricky, good morning.
Morning, Nick.
Hi, Ricky. Go ahead.
Got a couple of questions for Dr. Friday.
Sure, great. Go ahead.
I had a parent who died in 2014, and there was some real estate involved, and a lot of equipment for farms and some cows and stuff like this. And of course, the estate's still not settled.
Right.
But we actually are selling the land in 4 different pieces of land, and none of the equipment was sold 2016. But all the farms equipment, all the farm or the land was sold 2016. When we go to file our personal income taxes, I'm talking about there's like more than one sibling, where we have to put that on a personal income tax, or we do a farm income tax, then do a personal separate.
No, the farm doesn't exist any longer once the parents passed away. I'm assuming since you broke it up in 4 pieces of property, you guys sold it as farmland, but I mean the farm, you aren't farmers. So you want to do Schedule Ds. You need to make sure there was an appraisal value at the time of the passing, because that's going to be your cost basis. Very, very important right now. There may be an estate tax return that needed to be filed to see if there was, it may not be that there was an estate tax due, but the reason we do them now is to establish the basis of, because you're saying this happened in 14, we've now got 15, we're into 16, you need to have that basis as of 14. You need to file the estate return ideally 9 months after, or before, within 9 months of the passing, to establish that basis, because it could take you 2-3 years to actually sell this, and there may be an increase or a decrease of those assets during that time period. So it is very, very important to establish the basis, especially with equipment, because if he was a serious farmer, some of those pieces of equipment could sell for $30,000, $40,000 of resale value. So we're not talking petty cash. Oh, he had a little piece of $500 here or whatever. There may have been homes on these properties that had antiques or things in them. A lot of farmers have been in those homes for families and generations. So all I'm saying to you is, it sounds like there may or may not have been, but I would definitely go back and I would file an estate return. How are these properties claimed as far as deeds? Are they still in the person that had passed away? Did they get quick claimed into the name of each of these beneficiaries? Was it done properly, meaning did they get quick claim for $1? You establish the cost basis of $1. If you did that, we need to get, there's some things that could cost you if you don't do it right, I guess. So very important to make sure the documentation is correct on that.
Ricky, we're going to put you on hold because we have to take a break. We're right up against it. When we come back, I'll let you hit her with your second question right after this. And the line's open, 737-7587. Final segment, and then yes, she's going to leave us. We'll be right back after this.